Hi there, and welcome to Quartet. John Peterson's my name from the Arlington Institute, and we're so happy to have you with us today. We get together like this fortnightly, every couple of weeks, to talk specifically in depth about the big issues that are related to the transition to the new world. We're coming to you from the Arlington Institute here in Berkeley Springs, West Virginia, and our panelists have, as always, come from all over the place. We're happy to have you, Penny Kelly, with us today. How are you today?
I'm great.
Great.
It's good to be here.
All right, and Kingsley Dennis. Hi, Kingsley.
Hello, John. Hello, Penny, and greetings to everyone watching. It's good to be back. Cheers.
Yeah, and it's nice to have you back. Greg Braden, who's usually with us, is tramping around in Peru as we speak somewhere, and so he'll be back next time when we get together again. So today it's a trio instead of a quartet, but we've got some interesting things to talk about related to other dimensional kind of reality and what its significance is in the middle of all this transition. So now we have questions. All right, so Penny, you've got the list of the questions. Will you kind of run over the questions for us this time?
Sure, I'd be happy to, because they're very interesting. There's a suggestion from Anonymous. She says, or she, it, would like to thank the Quartet team for the refreshingly open-minded and provocative approach you take to many subjects, and consider the following idea. Many people feel that there's a cataclysmic event on the horizon that has the on and off planet puppeteers worried. What if they are worried that they will no longer be in control of a game that has long suited them? I think that's good. And what if the event they know is coming is not an event that would destroy Earth, but is in fact an event that would make Earth and its people not habitable for them? And I just wrote jackpot. That is exactly what's happening. So, and there's a whole bunch, there's another whole page of what ifs.
All right.
So, yeah.
So that's really great, and we appreciate all those questions. We hope that you'll, all of you who are watching, will take advantage of our website and send in questions or comments that you have, because we certainly read them and we appreciate them. And in this particular case, we'll lift a couple of those and we'll make them subjects for our upcoming kind of episodes. So it's time for our topic of the day. And our topic of today has to do with other dimensional realities and what their role is, or maybe, or isn't, in terms of the great transition that we're all experiencing. All of my life, I lived with very little kind of appreciation for the possibility that there was other dimensional kind of life. I was, of course, exposed to demons and angels through the religious kind of upbringing that I was brought up in, and the many kind of stories about angels saving people from skiing over the edge of a cliff or some, all these kind of anomalous kind of things that were very kind of compatible with and consistent with the religious kind of notion of the role of angels and demons. There was very little bit about demons per se. That was, the devil was out there, of course, and you needed to live your life so that he didn't get you. And it was a very simplistic kind of thing. But I've been impressed in the last couple of 3 years where I've been exposed to kind of wave after wave after wave of kind of expanded kind of exposure to the possibility, or the likelihood, the certainty, one might argue, of that there is a whole other dimensional space universe, a parallel universe almost, that coexists with us here, that is populated by any of a whole bunch of different kind of entities. And you could start with extraterrestrial life, of course. And we've talked about that here before, and Penny has had a lot to say about that. And that in and of itself is a very significant kind of subject. I had been exposed by a Muslim woman who worked for me. She told me once that there's a whole book in the Quran about jinn and how they all operate, and they're here, and you just kind of got to deal with them and so on. And Robert Steele, I read this book about these jinn, and the guy, whoever wrote it, said on 3 different occasions throughout this book, do not ever underestimate the capabilities of these entities. They have amazing kind of abilities to influence the way you think, generate, reality, and people and things and experiences in your kind of 3-dimensional kind of space. They have, they're limited in some ways, but they're there. And you say, well, wait a second, I didn't know anything about that. And then I read an article in the Wall Street Journal where they were quoting, remember Ahmadinejad, who was the president of, was it Afghanistan? Is that what it was? Or maybe it was Iran, maybe.
Iran.
Yeah. And some kind of breathless reporter was saying, Ahmadinejad said he had contacted his jinn and that he had this relationship with this entity, and and here's a world leader that's looking at this. And then the guy, if you read yourself down further into the article, he said, well, then I went to Saudi Arabia and said, look at what Ahmadinejad said. And they all looked at me and said, well, what do you mean? We all have those guys. We all deal with them that way. And so suddenly there was this notion that there's this kind of bigger expanded space that is kind of working in concept, or parallel at least, to where we live right now. Then I got exposed to Paul Levy in his book Wetiko. And Paul Levy essentially assembled from many different indigenous and historical and ancient kind of sources the common kind of notion, and religions, by the way, that there is a force that is in play, that is generated, as a matter of fact, by like-minded people. He would quote the biblical kind of verse that says, where 2 or 3 are gathered together, there am I in the midst. The notion here is that when you get people who have an emotional attachment to a concept or an idea, that they in fact generate, they build, they produce an entity. And then you've got Rudolf Steiner, of course, who talked about the fact that we're up against principalities and powers, the Luciferians and the harmonic kind of force, and he was very prescient in being able and suggesting that the harmonic force is kind of the equivalent of what the technology is turning into today, and so on. And you say, how does this work? I mean, what's at play? This is not what it looks like. Carlos Castaneda's, of course, in his Don Juan thing was laced with all this other dimensional entities and stuff that they wanted to get involved with. So in any case, there's this growing kind of sense that there's a lot of players in the space that I would suggest that in any kind of conventional terms, you would say the governments and corporations and other kinds of things have no play, or at least don't have any active kind of indication that they're aware of or play these kinds of things. And the big question is, are they a significant influence and a force in this transition that humans are making to a new world and a new human? Or are they just incidental? Are they always going to be there? Are they like trees and other kind of intelligent things or wild animals and stuff, and you kind of got to deal with them, but they're not, but on the other hand, maybe they're just central kind of to this increasing awareness that would characterize the new human. So that's the question today.
Now, you mentioned, John, about these people talking about Wetiko and John Joanne. I covered this in my book, Healing the Wounded Mind. And there's something has a commonality about this. Now, Wetiko, the name was mainly popularized before Paul Levy by Jack Forbes. And Jack Forbes was an American Indian activist. And he said that the term Wetiko really signified a kind of mental disease. And he said that a lot of Europeans, when they came over to America and interacted with the Native Americans, they brought this kind of upside down way of seeing the world. We have to conquer, we have to, he said it's a form of cannibalism in his book, Columbus and Other Cannibals. So it's like a mind disease that then is contagious. And we have to think that consciousness is contagious. Now, Don Juan, when he was speaking, he mentioned the predators. And he said that the predators were these other dimensional entities. And he said their greatest strategy is that they gave us their mind. They gave us their thoughts, their mind. So when we're behaving and acting, we don't know exactly from which mind are we operating from. And this is similar how Steiner said in the Aramanic forces, they try to kind of possess people and take over their thinking patterns and even take over their physical gross matter. Steiner said that there are people who he would say are more or less soulless. They're just a physical gross matter, but other intelligences are maneuvering this. So what they have in common is that they are intervening in the human consciousness or the human receptivity of consciousness. So this can be said to be behind many nefarious agencies on the planet. Now, we may see human bodies, people, bankers and elites and all these people behaving badly, but like whose mind are they operating from? They may not even realize where their influences are coming from. So, and if we can understand that, we tend to see, it gives us a bigger picture. These people may not be just like bad people or bad humans. They may be actually the front puppets for other interdimensional forces that are coming through the receptivity of consciousness. And of course, another side is that humans create these forces themselves through what we may call elementals. You mentioned this about, football teams or nation states. And, if you get enough people together and they think about a subject, the thought creates an elemental, which has power in itself to affect. And because it's not physical, we don't give it validity. And we can say it's other dimensional. And so, and the certain wisdom traditions say that at the end of developmental cycles or evolutionary cycles, there are certain forces which come in to create the conditions for different faculties and different organs of perception within humanity to develop in order to receive the new energies or frequencies coming in. So these are what we may call other dimensional interventions, which are trying to activate mechanisms, faculties, or organs of perception in humanity that prepares for the next stage. So I think if we are within just a physical paradigm, we don't see anything of this, and what we can't see, we don't know. Like, was it Rumsfeld who famously said, there are things we don't know, and there's things we have no idea that we don't know. And I think that's the stage we're getting to. So so put aside the nefarious forces that we've been talked about. And, there's a great saying, and when you mentioned angels and demons, John, I thought of this saying that says, the demons are losing, but they have not yet lost. And the angels are winning, but they have not yet won. So you see, something is already in process. Where we're going to has already been manifested at other dimensional level. It just hasn't penetrated and permeated the physical domain. And I think this is what, again, the question from Anonymous was suggesting, that it's already done. And you can't stop it. You can't hold back the tide because it's already manifested in a physical realm or other dimension. It just has to percolate and manifest in this dimension. And if you can see that coming, then you know that it's a done deal. It's just that other people on this planet may are manipulating this information so we can't be receptive to it, to block us to it, block us to transformative energies, block us to spiritual, metaphysical energies, because they know that they're already coming. So again, just to finalize, if we have all this distraction about, green men or this, on one side, it can open up people's minds to the possibility that there are things we don't know coming from realms we don't know. Why are they manifesting in the physical realm? To show us that they're coming from somewhere, and it may not be a physical realm. But we have to understand that there are great forces that are intervening to make sure that evolution on this planet gets to where it's growing, because it's part of a grander evolutionary sphere. So I'll say that and stop there.
So given the intense propaganda and the fear-mongering that's going on, that's a very, very big push toward evolution. People either wake up or go down with a ship. And so that pushes people. And without that push, we would likely just kind of drift along and spend our time in Margaritaville having a good time. And if that's working, and there's a philosophy and principles and values behind that Margaritaville concept, absolutely, we're here to enjoy the experience, to enjoy life. It's about joy and fun and creating and the music and the dance and the, what kind of technology can we build and where can we go and what can we explore? So there's all of that. The human brain, let's just talk about that for a minute. The human brain is only wired for two kinds of perceptions. That's it. That's the hypothalamus does it all. And so those two perceptions are pleasure and pain. What is the point of limiting us? Everything is a version of one of those two frequency states, pleasure or pain. The pleasure is to pull us toward it. The pain is to teach us, no, move away from that. And so what is the general direction of evolution? It's toward pleasure. Well, when you've experienced the God state and the incredible bliss that's there, you understand what pleasure is. And it's not all the stupid things that we think are, quote, pleasurable here. Pleasure is a feeling state of the entire system in which every cell is in a state of utter continuous renewal, regeneration, and producing what I'll call the factors, the hormones, the frequencies that generate joy. So that's the human brain part of it. That's not accidental, that we're only wired for those two things. The next point is that in spite of that human brain, or maybe, along with it, we have this incredible heritage of thousands of years of attempts to keep people in the physical realm. People do not stay in the physical realm for very long because it is so challenging. And when you get here, you figure out, or you forget, or you never figure out, how do things really work? You get caught up, hypnotized by the material. So we have this huge legacy of, the concepts of gods and archons and demons and angels and all of that. And so we have to deal with that. We have this legacy that we have to deal with. And then all of those concepts, when you put all those out there, gods, demons, angels, messengers, whatever, archons, jinn, what do they point to? They point to powers over there. It's not here. It's not in us. It's outside the self. Well, what does that tell us? If you go beyond the whole concept of powers over there, then you begin to question, what's it doing over there? What about over here? And what I'll just go to the bottom line with that is eventually what you realize is that you're in this soup of frequencies and forces. And what has happened over time, especially in the material realm, is that people who are sensitive to those different forces and factors personalize them. And that is one of the shortcomings of the physical realm, is they personalize everything. So that force, that frequency, that field that happens to have a frequency with degenerative influence or destructive influence instead of constructive interference, that comes in, and people who are sensitive to that give it a name, and then it starts to do just what Kingsley was talking about. It becomes real to them. And so we have this whole concept of power outside of us, and we don't question that. The next, well, that's actually the suggestion for number 5. Number 6 is, in order to overcome and step into your own power, you have to realize that that is the goal. You can't say, I need some power to do this. The goal is reaching that power. And it's not a task for the faint of heart. Once you have the capacity to move out of the body and to travel in some of those, I'll say among some of those fields, you quickly understand, and I can't emphasize this too much, that you better be ready. You better have a sense of self, a sense of your own power. You better have a presence that is unassailable. You have to have a rock inside of you. And you need to know how to turn that rock on and off.
I hear you say a couple of different things, if I heard you correctly. And one is that you said that, or implied that almost that these other forces kind of don't exist if you don't think about them.
No,
And
that's
that,
not true.
okay,
I hope,
then we can
let's
talk
correct
about that.
They exist, and you have to deal with them. And there's more I could say about that, but I don't want to run out of time and take all the time, so we don't have time for our last questions. But yes, they exist, and that's what presence and power is for, because you have to navigate those.
And
Okay.
so then I would ask the two of you, how do you navigate those? What is the function going forward into this evolutionary jump of this other dimension, this community of other dimensional kind of entities, and what's the best way to go forward on this?
Go ahead, Kingsley. It's your turn.
Okay, thank you. Well, in one sense, I would say that we have to get out of our own way. Because you see, we tend to block what's coming in. I mean, what's coming in is a part, and if we're not aware of that, we start to collaborate with that, and we start to block that. So, and that's through our non-awareness and our distractions and being focused on the physical. What I would say from my perspective is that we need more receptivity to the positive aspects, to the finer frequencies and vibrations. So that means if we can do anything, it's not trying to run around, fix everything, because we don't know how things need to be fixed, but we need to move away from the denser, lower vibrations, which are keeping us down and blocking us, and move towards, Penny calls it the pleasure syndrome. I would call it love. There's either love or non-love. For me, there's the two forces. And if we can move towards love, be receptive to the finer forces, and not allow ourselves to be distracted by the heavier elements of fear, elements of manipulation, then we can allow greater forces to do their job, do their work, because they're coming in. And we need to, so even if you're not aware of them, we need to kind of understand and comprehend that they do exist. And that's why I think this conversation is useful, because we can't give a ABC solution, but we can say we are part of much, much grander movements, and they're coming in and they're inevitable, but we have to be receptive to them as much as possible.
Yeah. Let me add something here.
That's the positive ones, but there are those that play what we would presume is a negative role. And so are you supposed to engage them? Are you supposed to ignore them? Are you supposed to what? Penny?
No,
Don't
that's
resist
one of
them. If you resist them, you entrain with their energy. That's what
That's
they
right.
All
want.
right.
So you don't
All right.
resist them. You be aware of them if possible, and step your energy away from them.
Yeah.
So you don't think about them, right?
Well, yeah, I'm aware of them, but I don't energetically entangle my thoughts with them.
Yes. There's
That's
a
right.
fine
Okay.
I'm
difference.
aware through discernment that they're there, and then I make a
Got it.
conscious decision to not be
Yeah,
entangled.
you don't give them emotional stuff, Penny.
No, don't give them the heavy emotions for sure. They
No,
feel it.
you have to carry the awareness. I would have said the exact same thing. You're aware, but actually, in some of my conversations with other dimensional beings, their refusal to engage in all of my worry has been a huge lesson for me. They will not engage in all of that. When they say, just do this, they mean that's where you focus. You keep your awareness up, but you put your time, your energy, your thought, your action in this direction. And so there's that. And they also have said things like there are steps or stages for getting out of the mess that you're in. And one of those early steps is, just like Kingsley said, you make the decision, I'll hold the awareness, but my work, my effort, my thinking, my creative oomph is going in this direction. And you only deal with what's right around you in the beginning. They have said for you to be worrying about what's happening across the world is a misplacement of your power. You need it right here to learn how to use it, and then it expands. So for whatever that's worth, keep that in mind. Deal with what's right in your face.
Yeah. And I would add, this is
So-
not a kind of message for people to say, oh, sit back, do nothing, because it's all part of being taken care of. No. Each person has to do their own work. And their own work is not resisting the greater forces, but working on themselves to not get energetically entangled in these lower energy forces. So you can assist what's coming in to meet it, to be receptive to it.
That's right.
Well, we've had a good discussion, and we're running ourselves out of time here. And I thank you both for all your good. This is always fun. I really enjoy this, and we have a great number of people who send me notes all the time, telling me how much they appreciate our discussions. And so, I thank you again. And for those of you who are viewing, let me just remind you again that this comes to you from the Arlington Institute, our little research institute here in Berkeley Springs, West Virginia. And we do a bunch of things here that are all related to kind of facilitating this transition to a new world. We've got a free newsletter, future edition, and a bunch of things. You can find out a lot about this, everything about this at arlingtoninstitute.org. And you can also find out all about some of our other programs like Transition Talks. We have speakers like Penny and Greg and others who come in every month here. And we live stream them all over the world. But all of that is available at our website. And we hope that you'll check it out. And so thanks again. And let's just close, as we always do, by saying, what do you think is going to happen in the next couple of weeks? Penny, Kelly?
Oh, did you have to start with me? I think we might have a very good chance of having a change of presidency. So,
Oh my.
yeah, I keep.
You're just gonna float that, just gonna just let
I
that dangle out there.
I'm sorry. I keep seeing that I get to the end of this month and there's no president. There's something big, major
Something,
shifted.
something other than a president. Okay,
Yeah,
that's
right.
that's something to look forward to. Kingsley, what do you think?
Well, that's a big one, Penny. I mean, it's a shame that some more presidents weren't in Nevada at Burning Man. Well, I mean, I think there's more to come around the climate issue, because we're moving out of summer into the autumn now, and I think this summer's been so erratic. It's going to be part of the autumn narrative by saying, they're going to have all these new records being broken, new hottest summer on record, most wildfires on record, most floods on record. I think that's going to grow into an autumn and winter narrative in the next few weeks building up. On the other side, I think there's going to be more and more backlash from people, because we've had people coming out on social media, the opera, and the Rock saying you have to donate your money to Hawaii. And a lot of people are savvy to this, and they're realizing that doesn't smell right. And there've been a lot of backlash to that. And I think more and more people are going to have backlash to this, tomfoolery that's going on. And people are wising up and not holding their tongue anymore. I think we're going to see more of that coming out on social media.
I would agree with you completely. The backlash is growing. That's what I've been thinking about. I've been impressed by the fact that people are saying this is not natural. This is not real. This, you don't have cars that just melt in the middle of the road, and there's no, the trees down the side are not burned, and there's something going on here, unusual. And then well, anyway, you start to connect the dots about what's been happening other kinds of places and so on. And so this is all pointing, I would argue, to what Martin Armstrong suggests, is that by about a year from now or so, it starts to become clear that there's going to be a global civil war, because people are going to rise up against their governments because they say that you betrayed us. And so you can see that putting in place the kind of initial set of events that all contribute to this notion of betrayal. So thank you so much. Thank you all. And thank all of you who are our viewers. We really appreciate it. And we hope you'll come back and be with us again on Quartet in another couple of weeks. So thanks so much. Take care.